the Royal Oak Show with Carlo Ginotti. Tonight, visualist entertainment producer Keith Famie, John Schultz and Mauren McDonald, Dan Calabrese, and the comedy of Russ Brown. And now, Carlo Ginotti.
Thank you. Oh, really? Continue on. Let's do that again. But welcome back to the Royal Oak Show, Andy. This is, our fourth season now?
4 years. Can you believe it?
4 years together. We're like a married couple almost.
Yeah.
Hey, I
Not
noticed,
another wife, please.
Hey, I noticed a little facial hair there. What's going on?
Well, you know, I'm trying to be a little bit more like you, with the facial hair. Well, minus the law degree. I wouldn't want that. If I've offended any lawyers out there, good. But no, this took a long time. It's been about 6 months in the making, believe it or not.
See, I can do that in about 3 hours.
3 hours, is that right? Yeah. Right.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because we're going to have to be careful because people are going to start confusing the two of us. We're starting to look so much alike.
Yes.
By the way, you're growing the facial hair. What do you think? How do you like what I've done with my hair?
It's fantastic. I mean, that's, they make that spray hair. You should probably look into that a little bit.
I'm trying to be just like Andy Aubrey.
Well, you could color it in. When I did this before, I had to go to the Sharpie marker just to color it in a little bit. And my wife told me, how ridiculous that was. And I would have to agree with her. So what I did is I went to Home Depot and I got some of these markers for when you get a little nick in your desk or your coffee table. And I think it was the medium maple that did it, really. So
you think he's kidding, but he's serious.
It's true. And people would say, well, why not makeup, right? They make makeup for that, but $3.99. So.
And you see what I have to put up with for the last 4 years. And despite that fact, we're still an international success, the Royal Oak Show.
We still have a show. That's true.
That's good. We're, as I said, it's our fourth season. It's hard to believe that it just was yesterday that we, over several dozen Castle Rock, or was it, what was the name of the liquid that night we were imbibing?
Rolling Rock?
Rolling Rock, yeah. We started out, this idea was born, and look at us now. Is this
just
on?
Look at
Is
it.
this working?
Yeah.
Is this working? Well, it's good to see such a...
very patronizing bunch we have here
I love
tonight.
that applause box. I'm going to take that home with me and follow me around. Mm-hmm. It's good to see we have a large crowd tonight.
We do. Very nice studio audience.
It's good to see that the flyer that we sent out for hot soup and warm gloves worked. and you will get the hot soup and the gloves after the show, but you have to stay awake. In fact, I see somebody over there sleeping right now. Somebody can wake George up. That's good. So, hey, Andy, I've checked the internet for the mail that comes into us every day at the Royal Oak Show.
Right.
And people seem to have some jokes about the Detroit Lions. I can't understand why. Have you heard any good ones lately?
Well, let's see. You know how the Lions count to 10, right?
How?
0-1, 0-2, 0-3.
I've heard that before.
Yeah,
I've heard
that was
that
yours.
before. We better get that applause thing going there.
No, they actually won a couple games this year. We couldn't say that.
They're actually doing really well this year. I mean, we won't go that far.
Really well.
Hey, one that I heard the other day is, what do the Detroit Lions and Billy Graham have in common?
I don't know. What is that?
Well, funny you should ask. They both can get 80,000 people to fall to their knees and pray for a miracle at the same time. So,
hey.
like that? Somebody else sent another one in. They said, it said, Carlo, Andy, talk about this one. What's the difference between the Detroit Lions and the Taliban?
I'm not sure.
You want to take a guess?
I couldn't guess.
All right. Well, apparently the Taliban still has a running game. Okay. All right. Andy, at the risk of losing our place on the international network here, we better get on with the show.
We got great guests.
We've got stupendous guests. I mean, we've got so many guests. In fact, I said it earlier that with all of the guests that we have, you and I are the only ones in the studio without any talent.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of a running theme in the show.
They didn't seem to be too surprised at that.
No, they were all nodding in agreement.
We do have a great show. In fact, we're going to get started right now. We've got some very talented people, and I don't want to waste any more time. So with that, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief break, but when we come back, we're going to have Keith Famie with us. So don't go anywhere and come right back.
Come on, man. Give it a program.
All right, welcome back to the Royal Oak Show, ladies and gentlemen. Our first guest, of course, needs no introduction. He has been the driving force behind some of the area's most successful restaurants. He's been on the hit TV series Survivor, too, which we were going to talk about briefly. And now he has produced a documentary to honor our Vietnam vets entitled Our Vietnam Generation, which, by the way, will premiere at the Fox Theater January 28th. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, you know who I'm talking about, but let's give a warm Royal Oak Show welcome to Mr. Keith Famie. Keith, thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
My new best friend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to watch out for him, though.
No, I feel comfortable. This way, if anything, whatever happens, he's like my security blanket right here.
You can jump right into his lap.
He's my psychologist right there.
Yeah, sometimes the questions...
I'm on this couch, right? We've already talked about this pillow. Right. Comforting this can be.
Sometimes the questions I ask are so pointed that people find themselves, moving toward Andy.
I can pass to him.
Right.
I have to translate for him. Right.
Okay.
We were talking before we came on, Andy, that, when I told people that Keith Famie was going to be on the show, they were saying, "How are you getting Keith Famie to come on the Royal Oak Show?" I know. See, that's what I told
thought
him.
It was Oprah. They said Oprah.
Well, Oprah's
you don't look like Oprah.
Well, thank you. Oh, I'm sure she thanks you too. No, Oprah is coming later on. I mean, she's going to be here, but until she gets here, I figured I'd ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
But thank you so much for being on the show.
It's great to be here. It's a great show.
This is cable show at its finest, and I'll tell you, I don't know. We've had a couple other guests here that once they've been on the show, their careers have rocketed.
Have taken right off.
So be prepared. Be prepared.
I can't wait. Listen, I think it's just fantastic, the fact that you've got a show that you can broadcast internationally around a town of Royal Oak. I mean, that's just cool. That's a lot to be said for Michigan and southeastern Michigan, of course, Royal Oak.
We really love the show. We love the city,
concept.
and we really like it. It's our 4th season. So, and you're in the kickoff show of the 4th season, which in cable, that means that if Richard Wilson, our producer, doesn't kick off, we'll have a show today.
There you go. That's good.
That's cable. Keith, thanks for coming on. I've already said that a million times. Excuse me. But you do have, in your humble beginnings, you started somewhere here in the city of Royal Oak, didn't you?
20 years old, we opened a restaurant called Les Auteurs in Royal Oak when it was tumbleweeds flowing through the city, and people like to say that you created this start of Royal Oak, and I said we kind of were part of the movement. So we were one of the blazing trails of entrepreneurial spirit, stupidity, not understanding what it means to take out big bank loans, and but it worked.
You've learned your lesson now.
Oh yeah, but it was it was one of the most important times of my life. To be a part of Royal Oak and what we did there, and the community and the charity events and the community, and my kids were born in Royal Oak. I mean, Royal Oak's one of those sensational cities in Michigan for sure.
We think so too, and thanks for giving back. You've also, I mentioned very briefly that you've had a few other successful ventures in the restaurant world in the land of food. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but you've had a couple other businesses, haven't you, with regard to food in general? You're a chef by trade, by training.
Well, I had Les Auteurs, and then I operated Forte in Birmingham, and then of course I had a series on Food Network called Keith Famie's Adventures in Cooking, which came after that little show called Survivor. So. I've been around the food block a little bit.
See, I was feeling you out on how much you wanted to talk about Survivor. But
I figured I'd go there and get it over with. All right, let's get it.
That's really why we had you
out of the box right now. All right.
That's the real reason we had you. Why Oprah asked us to have you on.
Let's get the question. Can he cook rice? Yes, I can cook rice. Okay.
Number 2.
Do I look like I can't cook rice? My God, if you had the most embarrassing things.
Well, now our viewers know you can cook rice. And number 2, everyone's dying to find out about Survivor 2. You got to. Come on, give us some dirt. Tell us what that's all about.
You know what? When you're on that show, there's a rule that you have. You sign these huge contracts where you're not supposed to divulge or talk about anything that goes on the show. And when I was off the show, I got home in December. The show started airing in January. Right around middle of February, I was in Palm Springs doing an event for General Motors, a cooking event. And the Survivor was still on, so it was in its 7th season or 7th period or whatever, segment at that time. And I was doing this event at Palm Springs, and a big cooking event. I was the featured celebrity cook and guest that evening. The next day, Dana Carvey was there, and previous President George Bush Sr. And so there was the 3 of us who were doing this thing for all these executives of General Motors. And so I didn't even know President Bush was there. And I'm having breakfast the next day, and I'm sitting in this little cafe in this beautiful resort in Palm Springs, and the security guard, didn't know it was security, special, Secret Service was looking at me, and he goes, "You're Keith Famie." And I'm going, yeah. Yeah. He says, you're in Survivor. Because the show's on now. So a lot of times people couldn't wrap their whole head around, well, how are you here if the show's, they taped it. You got to get that part. You got to get over that. So he goes, I love that show. Listen, the president and Barbara Bush are sitting around the corner. He watches it every week. Would you talk to him? I know I got a few minutes, no problem.
What the heck? Yeah, I'll go talk to him.
So I walk around the corner. He introduces me. He says, President, this is Keith Famie. Oh, my God, you're a Survivor. I love that show. Would you sit down? I sat down for a couple minutes, and he's done eating now. So he says, do you mind getting up and walking with me for a little bit? Yeah, got a few more minutes, no problem.
Sure, Mr. Prez.
So we walk out of this little cafe, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm walking with the president. And behind him are 4 Secret Service people. And I kid you not, he did this really cool thing. He just turned and looked at them, and they all fell back, 10, 15 feet. They were with us, and they just walked back. And so we walked around for 10, 15 minutes. This guy asked me every question I wasn't supposed to answer. I told him anything he wanted to know. I figured if he can't keep a secret, who can? Who goes here? I hope I didn't ruin the show. I told him everything he wanted to know, and he asked me everything.
If you can't trust the president,
you can't trust the president.
Yeah.
Who can you trust?
That's funny. Well, let's fast forward a little bit, a lot. After Survivor, I know you probably anything after that was,
well,
you couldn't.
I was fortunate. Survivor opens a window that gives you an opportunity. What you do at that window on that show. A lot of people pack their bags, go to LA, I'm going to come to Hollywood and be a celebrity, I'm a star. 6 months later, they're living with mom. I didn't mean to look at you like that. That wasn't meant towards you.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that, Andy.
Wasn't taken that way.
So, I was fortunate. I was, I had a cooking thing going before that. I had a thing on Detroit on WDIV and stuff, and I approached Food Network. We signed a contract with them. We did 30-some shows at my company. I had formed a company then in '97, Visual Entertainment Productions, and we did cooking adventure shows from Crete to Tahiti to Paris, and I hosted, and we produced, and we had a great time. Africa, and all over the world. And then about 5 years ago, so maybe a little more than that, almost 6 years now, I had an opportunity to go to Russia with the Red Wings, and I was asked to produce a show where I produced and directed a film called Ice Warriors that I created this name Ice Warriors with a friend of mine, Bill Evo. And the whole idea was to follow these guys from the Red Wing alumni to do this adventure trip, a guy trip. And I loved producing and directing so much it stuck. And then from there I started a series called Our Story Of, and we've been fortunate. We've won several Emmys now. And last year we did Detroit, Our Greatest Generation, which was a tribute to our World War II generation. My father was a bombardier on a B-17, and he passed away about 7 years ago of Alzheimer's. And it kind of festered in me about the fact that I never spent the time to put a camera on my dad, and so I did these interviews with all these World War II veterans. It took us almost 2 years to do. And every time I sat down with these guys, old timers, it was like I was sitting with my dad. It was just, it was really special. And which takes us to what we're doing this year, which is our Vietnam generation.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to gloss over it. It's the Visionalist Entertainment Productions. Mm-hmm. That's your company, right?
Yep. You can go to v-prod.com is the website if you're interested.
It'll be scrolling across the bottom of the TV here just a little while ago.
TV.
But you have your most recent venture, if you will, is a film by the name of Our Vietnam Generation.
Our Vietnam Generation. Well, the thing of it is every time I turned around during the filming of Our Greatest Generation, there was a Vietnam veteran there. Every time I turned around. And what I came to realize is that our Vietnam veterans had become the caregivers of our World War II generation, clearly. And the other very significant thing that I realized is that they become the guardians of our current military. If a soldier comes home that has been killed in action in our current war now, the first person there will be a Vietnam veteran, a group of them. Doesn't matter what the weather is, doesn't matter what time it is, doesn't matter. They will be there. They'll be there to stand there with that family. And it's a unique psychological philosophy that they have, and it's this, that when they came home, they were not welcomed home. Mm-hmm. Society didn't wrap their arms around them. The 60s was one of the most turbulent, most historical times in our history. Assassinations, civil rights movements, music, drugs, which is, you said drugs, rock and roll. Well, you did mention drugs, and I missed it when I was talking out there. Drugs. It had nothing to do with the hair.
It's just not your night, Andy, I'll tell you.
But he's not coming back. I don't care how much he begs.
Off the list. I'm sorry. He's
sorry.
But it was a big time in the 60s, and these guys were a part, and there was a war. Right. And, they're now in their 60s, and they're fighting things with Agent Orange cancers. A lot of them are retiring, so they're reflecting back on their life, and they're having all kinds of emotional issues. And you know what? They deserve their story to be told. And so that's what we're doing. We're telling our Vietnam generation story through their lives. We took a Marine back to Vietnam. We've done countless interviews. We've been shooting for 16 months now, and it's going to premiere January 28th at the Fox. It's going to be an amazing night.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that because you've got a whole host of stars. You've got yourself, obviously. You're expecting thousands of people there.
Please don't bank on me being the draw.
Well, I'll tell you, after the Royal Oak show airs, you better get some more seats at the Fox Theater. So,
we hope
but
so.
You did bring a clip tonight, and I'll tell you, I did see the trailer, and it's very, very moving.
What I really want to bring out in the film is who is a Vietnam veteran. Who is a Vietnam veteran? And first of all, if you say Vietnam, how many people think of this beautiful place in Southeast Asia? None. It's the one place that has been marked so severely by a war. That's first of all. Second of all, if you say Vietnam veteran, society, unfortunately, thinks what? Guy in the street homeless, guy in the bar, belligerent individual, somebody that's upset, somebody who's angry. What they don't think of is Senator John Papa George, Livingston County Sheriff Bizzotti, Master Sergeant Jeff Rector, Casualty Assistance Officer for the state of Michigan. They don't think of firefighter Bruce Harbin. They don't think of these are the guys that built their society. This is our society. Yeah. And the fact is, and a professor who I met from Royal Oak College, who's
you did a great job of putting a face to these veterans, and set us up for this clip that you brought today.
And like I said, I've been really fortunate to do so many filmings with so many different individuals, and this individual is the professor at Rochester College, and he's a business law professor for the last 30 years. He was not to take away from his story, but I'll just set it up for you. He was a gunner pilot on a Cobra fight ship. Young guy, went to Vietnam, drafted, doing his job, was shot in the face and blinded. He came out of Vietnam blinded, went to school, got his degree, got his business degree, got his law degree, and he's been a professor for 30 years. I mean, it's a great story about individuals and what they can persevere and do through.
And this is
just a clip of an interview we did with him.
The movie itself is 82 minutes long, and there's a lot of these clips.
Oh,
I just saw the trailer, and it was very moving. Let's roll the trailer.
You're flying a gunship. It's a little like, I think the best comparison for modern audiences would be a video game like Galaga or Space Warriors, especially at night. You see the tracer coming at you, and most of the time they don't hit you. Then you can see the minigun tracer, just a almost continuous red line, and the rockets. And so I'd been there for several months. I was used to that. And I saw the tracer coming, but I didn't realize that it would hit me. No, so I was too focused on flying and shooting. And it took me a little by surprise. I blacked out pretty much immediately. I heard the co-pilot say that I had bought the farm. He was speaking to the other aircraft. And, but that's all I heard. That's all I remember until I woke up at the hospital. I am blind. I've got a hearing problem. But I really have never been bitter about it. To sponsor a United Nations effort to take Kuwait back. I am a Vietnam veteran, very proud of it.
I think thank you. I think that you can get a sense of why it's important that this story is told, and it's going to be special. It's going to be special for the Vietnam veterans of our state of Michigan on that night. It's going to be special for the veterans' families on that night. It will be special for all the current military that will be there that night. It will be an evening of patriotism. It'll be an evening of emotional, opening of doors and getting things out there. It's going to be an evening of being of proudness for them to be able to walk out knowing that they are feeling that this is their chance. Welcome home, and thank you for not all that you did, all that you do.
Right. Finally, they're getting a thank you. They're getting the welcome home. Yeah. Now, people can go to www.ourvietnamgeneration.com.
They can go to ourvietnamgeneration.com to read about the film, the documentary. You can click on the Fox Theater to see about that. You can call our office at 248-869-0096. You can get tickets through us. You can go to Ticketmaster for tickets. You can go to the Fox box office. It's going to be one incredible evening. We're closing the night at the Fox with the Perfecting Church Choir on stage singing Amazing Grace. We're filling the stage with veterans and current military holding vigil candles, shutting all the lights off in the Fox, and on this screen we'll scroll the 2,645 names and faces of the soldiers that were killed in Vietnam, as well as the soldiers killed recently in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
We've got just a few more minutes with you, Keith, but you touched upon that subject. Also showing with Our Vietnam Generation is One Soldier's Story. It's a story about Sergeant Michael Ingram, who was killed in Afghanistan in April.
This was just, it's not an accident. I think everything has some sense of fate to it, but I was filming with a group of Vietnam veterans on a cold Sunday morning at Selfridge Air Force Base, when the body of Sergeant Michael Ingram from Monroe, who was killed on April 17th in Afghanistan, arrived. And I was out on the tarmac with his family, and the casualty assistance officer for the state of Michigan, U.S. Army, has been in the service 39 years, Vietnam veteran. He handles all when somebody comes back and is killed or he buries, he does this for the U.S. Army. So I was there with him. We opened the gates to this cold, wet Sunday morning to go from Selfridge Air Force Base to Monroe. 70 Vietnam veterans there, all on their motorcycles in the rain. And in the process of filming them, I had a chance to, and then following week I filmed his funeral, and I had all this footage, and I had met with his parents, and I said, I had invited them to the office a few months later and to show them some of the stuff that I had, because they hadn't seen anything. I mean, I have a son that's 18 years old. I can't imagine to be a father to lose a son. I can't wrap my head around it.
And his story is the story that's going to be.
So we're doing a short film called One Soldier's Story in honor of him, because they're starting a foundation called Mikey's Minutes, because he was always pissed him off that he couldn't call home because he didn't have the money for it. So the foundation is helping create calling cards for soldiers to call home. So this little story, this little short documentary will premiere that night at the Fox to kick off the foundation, Mikey's Minutes.
Well, that's I can't wait. I hope I'm going to be able to get a chance to go see it. Again, this is you can go on your website, January 28th. Click on the Fox emblem, and it tells you all about the premiere. Mm-hmm. And you can also get information about the.
You can go to Ticketmaster, Fox box office, call our office, 248-869-0096.
And you're going to have Paul W.
Paul W. is our MC. Stuart Frankie and the 126 U.S. Army Marching Band will be doing the branch songs from the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. They'll all be in the audience. They're going to stand and sing their branch song. And it's going to be one amazing evening.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. And hopefully everybody out in the viewing audience and at home can log on to your site and find out more about it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Right. Hey, Keith, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Oprah, I understand that Oprah was stuck in the parking lot, so thank you very much. You stick around. I hope you can stay the rest of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with the Royal Oak Show with local authors John Schultz and Mauren McDonald. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. That's awesome. I wish we could do the first show.
It seemed like a good idea. My daughter would have a party at our house. I thought if they were going to drink, it would be better for them to do it at home where I could keep an eye on them. I even bought the alcohol myself. I thought it would be safer that way. And I guess I just wanted to be a cool parent. I didn't know that what I did was illegal, and then I could end up here.
Time's up.
I have to go.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our next guests are published authors. Their book, Images of America, Royal Oak, published in April of this year, is a fascinating pictorial history of Royal Oak from the days of Governor Cass, with the now famous story about how our name, we think, got its name. We'll talk about that in a little while. It's a story about Royal Oak from Governor Cass, as I said, through the early pioneer days up to and including time during our incorporation as a city in 1921. Anyone who has even a passing interest in the history of Royal Oak has to have this book in their library. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up, as the kids say, for John Schultz and Mauren McDonald. Thank you both for being on the Royal Oak Show. We do have a copy of this book, and we're going to get into it as soon as we have a few moments. When this book was published in April, we tried to get you guys on the show, but you were in such high demand. And, Oprah Winfrey wasn't here.
That's
so
right.
Our schedules didn't work out, but we're very, very happy that you're here, and it couldn't come at a better time, right around the holiday season, gift buying, and hopefully people will look you up and get your book. I'm going to start in no particular order here. It's always difficult when you have two guests, but John, you're no stranger here to Royal Oak. 30 years here in Royal Oak.
30 plus years.
30 plus. We won't age you at all. We won't. But you've had a couple ventures yourself here in Royal Oak. You were associated with the
started with the Daily Tribune in Royal Oak and worked there for about a dozen years as an editor, business editor, copy editor, assistant managing editor, and moved on to Metro Times for a couple of years. And
Metro Times.
Metro Times.
Andy, you
kind
know
of a little
Metro
alternative.
Times.
Oh, yes. I've seen that once or twice.
He's actually on the back cover.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But John, you've also you've worked with the Detroit News, and this is your first book. Is that correct?
It is my first book, and I think having experience in newspapers, 10 years at the News, it gave me a kind of a foundation for writing the book and researching it, and putting it together.
And when you hooked up with Mauren, so to speak, you've known each other for a long time?
We have. She and Mauren used to do some freelance writing for me, and she actually started with the book and decided she needed a little help and knew my background, and we got together and were able to put it together.
Now, Mauren, let's next victim here, if you will. You started with the Tribune right out of college, correct?
I did.
And did you know John back then? Or?
I was there first.
Oh, you were there first? Okay.
I was one of the first women that started Cityside. All the women had to start on the women's page, and so I was one of the first women that became a city reporter, and it was a great beat. It was marvelous to learn all kinds of new things that was happening in town and all around Southeast Michigan.
Now, the Tribune of old is a little different than the Tribune now. It's still a good paper, but it was a totally different. That was the only daily newspaper we had back
It
in
had
the day.
15 reporters covering 19 communities. It was huge. Newspapers in those days were this fat. They could break your foot if it fell.
When I talk to my father-in-law or anybody who's been in Royal Oak for a long time, it was the Tribune. You didn't read the newspaper, any other newspapers except the Tribune.
Well, it was the record of the city. I mean, they recorded everything, and everybody got the paper. I mean, it was automatic. You got the Tribune, so it was a family-run business, and everybody loved it.
And Mauren, you also, this is not your first book. You've had some other ventures, if you will. Oops.
Yes.
The one that I found the most intriguing, and you feel free to talk about all of the other, you've written for the AARP Bulletin. I'm not a member yet, but...
Okay.
No, actually, I get my ID card. Andy, you've also been a contributor for Cranes Detroit and DetroitMaker.com.
Detroit Make It Here.
Detroit
it's
Make
an
It Here, I'm
online
sorry.
magazine for the creative class.
Okay, and you've also you're an adjunct professor in journalism, is that correct?
Yes, I've taught at numerous universities.
And getting to the intriguing work, The Sirens of Chrome, The Enduring Allure of Auto Show Models.
Yes.
How about that, Andy?
Yeah.
What?
Where can we get that?
You can
there's a
still
lot of
find
pictures
it
in there?
at Borders and at the new shop at Somerset.
Oh, the Detroit stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's a momentum book that was produced locally on the history of the auto show models from what was the first pictures and the first plaster models into the girly girls and the ballroom clothes, into current day, which then the severe suit days, and then now it's kind of back into girly girls again.
It's not a bad thing, I guess. I guess it depends on how you look at it.
That's true, and many people do look.
Now, let's talk about the book. The book, obviously, we're talking about images of America Royal Oak. I'm going to show the cover here, and hopefully they'll zoom in. I did my nails. I even cleaned my nails today. So. This is a book, let me guess, it's about Royal Oak history. And as I said before, it starts out at the early days and takes us through a little journey through Royal Oak until 1921 or so. And there are other books about Royal Oak, and certainly we've had some of the authors on this show before. Your book is a little different, I think, both of you. How is your book different from those books?
Well, I think it's really, it gives the history through the photographs. It does tell a great story, and I think it's pretty lively. But I think just putting all the photos together in one place gives a chance for a reader to kind of leaf through, and you don't have to read it front to back. You can go anywhere in the book and start reading, and you'll find a little bit something interesting.
I know, again, I'm going to talk about my father-in-law because I'm trying to get into good graces with him. My wife is in the audience. But my father-in-law has been here, since the beginning of time, and his people before that. And he was looking at some of the pictures and could actually pick out some of the things. In fact, I think it was in this book that he actually saw the roof of his house downtown. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Amazing.
Now, you did bring some pictures with you tonight, and hopefully Richard's queuing them up. There's a lot of things about our lovely city of trees, if you will, that people may or may not know, and I think that's what makes your book unique, if you will. You talk about the good and you talk about the bad, and there's always some bad in every city. But before we go there, you got to tell the Lewis Cass story, and let me know if it's true. You hear it all the time. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, in fact, the cover of the book, which you have, is people in 1938.
Let me show it again while you're talking.
There was a tree committee that went to England to get acorns from the mighty oak, and it was the mighty oak, the royal oak, that saved a famous prince after the battle of. Goodness gracious.
Worcester.
Was it pronounced Worcester?
Yeah.
Like the town? The Battle of Worcester. And he hid inside a tree with his manservant. I don't know how comfy a tree with your manservant would be. And when
it's Royal Oak, I mean.
But anyways, the tree was famous, and throughout England people would make a pilgrimage to this tree for generations after that. And so when Lewis Cass was taking a tour of Oakland County after they'd signed a treaty with the Indians, they slept that night and had their little camp underneath this gigantic tree in Royal Oak, which is right about where the two cemeteries meet at 12 Mile and Main.
Crooks, Main, and Rochester Road.
Crooks, Main and Rochester Road.
Right there by Catalpa, right?
Yes,
okay, yeah.
where all those streets come in together. And he said, this reminds me of the mighty oak, and told this tale. And from then on, Royal Oak was Royal Oak. And in fact, the book has a tapestry that sits at the Royal Oak Middle School. It had been Dondero. There's the tapestries that were created during the Great Depression, the Works Progress Administration. And it has Lewis Cass and the angels have come, and the goddesses have come, and everyone blesses Royal Oak. It's kind of
wow. Now see that's a better story than I've heard before about that. So.
Okay. Yes.
And you heard it right here. You heard it right here on the Royal Oak Show.
So. And it's true.
It is true. Now I can believe that story. Some of the other variations were a little bit less believable, but we'll go with that one. So I like that. Now.
And that was 1818.
1818.
Yes.
That was a little bit before your time, wasn't it, Andy?
Right in there. Yeah,
okay,
give or take a few years.
Now, I think we're ready for some of the pictures, and maybe while Richard puts them on the screen, you can tell us a little bit about what these are, what we're seeing. Well,
Wanda and Winky.
Wanda and Winky, the
Remember
elephants?
Wanda and Winky, the arthritic elephants that were sent to San Diego, and umpteen people said, I've got arthritis, can I go to San Diego?
It didn't work, did it?
No, but the elephants did, and Winky died just a couple years after, but Wanda continued.
Now, the shot there is, we brought it back. That shot is the opening gate to, obviously, the Detroit Zoo. Tell us about that picture and what we're seeing there. Probably the opening gate of the Detroit Zoo, right?
Well, before the 696 came in, and MDOT paid to put a new entrance and a parking lot, but that was the famous entrance for many, many years.
Now I remember as a kid that entrance here. Now what are we seeing here? Now
This is Father Coughlin from Shrine of the Little Flower. He is, you can see a little bit of the shrine in the background, but he came to Royal Oak in the 1928, late 20s.
And there's another shot of the
And there's
father.
Father Coughlin.
Now Father Coughlin obviously caused a little bit of stir back in the 40s. And
He did. He came and they said, Royal Oak was growing, and they told him to go out and find some land and build a church. He says, well, I don't have any money. They said, that's not a problem. Just go out and we'll help you out. So he went to raise some money to build a church, and to do that, he went on the airwaves and actually started with a children's hour, and then it got into politics, and
the rest is history.
The rest
as
is
they say.
history.
Pardon the pun.
30 million viewers.
Listeners, yeah.
Listeners.
Yep. Well,
when
some
radio
people,
was just beginning, 30 million listeners. Rush Limbaugh doesn't have that many.
And that's almost as much as we enjoy here at the Royal Oak
That's
Show.
right.
30 million.
Yes,
right?
30 million.
Yes. Isn't that right, Andy?
Yeah,
Well,
30, 35, somewhere in
Right
there.
around there. We lost track.
Well, they said it was like a third of the country would listen to his sermons every Sunday. So,
And here's another show. I'll just let you describe what we're seeing here.
That's Monterey now.
Okay.
That's Noonan's department store.
That's Monterey, right down on Main Street.
Yes, Monterey Cantina.
Okay.
Now, previous to that, it was also a theater. It was called the Idle Hour, where people would go and they'd spend a dime and watch a movie. And then
That looks familiar.
now it's that little restaurant is Brothers Hamburgers, and it's still there today.
And there's the
That's
Washington
from the
building
50s.
in the back.
Yes, Washington Square, where Keith Famie had a couple restaurants.
Correct. We're going to talk about Jack Hanna in just a little while. Now, this is amazing. I looked at this picture.
This is a great shot. I think this is one of the better shots in the book. This is Beaumont Hospital right after opening. It's 5 stories. And
It's changed a little bit.
It's changed. And all the land was donated by the Parker family, and in the foreground is the Parker farm home. And they stayed in that home until the last one died, and then they finally tore it down. But they donated all that land for
And the street we
hospital.
see right in the front, that's Woodward Avenue? Is that?
No, that's the one you see is actually where the emergency entrance
Okay,
is to
we're
the
looking at it
hospital.
from the, okay.
And
all
the
right. We're looking
cross
at
street
that.
is 13 Mile.
All right. I think we have, this is another, that's a
You know that
shot.
picture.
Now this, of course, tell us a little bit about this picture.
That's Marshall Fredericks, who's the resident sculptor of Royal Oak, who had an office at Woodward in Normandy that was covered with ivy. And many people remember it when they ate at the Big Boy next door. You could look over and see this very clever building. And he worked out of that studio for 40 or 50 years. He did a lot of sculpture at Beaumont, at the Detroit Zoo, all over Northland.
The Spirit of Detroit.
Eastland, the Spirit of Detroit. And his last commission was the Star Dream.
There's an
and what's
interesting
kind of
story here.
interesting
Yeah, go ahead.
that, before he died, his wife had died before him, and here they are ascending to heaven.
Oh, okay.
And then there was quite a story about getting the chrome base to it. And then some of the goodly citizens thought there ought to be clothes on the statue, but fortunately the artistic people won.
That's good. And I know that's one of my kids' favorite. When they were younger, that was one of their favorite statues. I don't know why. But again, it is the backdrop for the Royal Oak Show. It's become kind of a trademark, so that kind of hits close to home, and we like that
Great.
one. Now, here, this is a good one.
Tom Hayden.
Tom Hayden of
He's a Don Darrow graduate and went on to start the students SDS,
Students for a Democratic
Society, and then married Jane Fonda and became a council member in California and on their legislature. And
He was also part of the Chicago 7.
absolutely, yep, that's right.
And here's a guy that we've been trying to get on the show for quite a while. This next slide.
Take it easy.
Yeah, take
This
it
is
easy.
Glenn Fry.
Glenn
from the
Fry.
Eagles, also a Don Darrow graduate.
And this is my favorite here. This is 5 pounds of coffee.
I'll bet you 5 pounds of coffee I can beat your deal.
Now, I mentioned that to people, and they did not know he was from Royal Oak.
Yes.
Yep.
He graduated from Don Darrow as well?
As
or-
well.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
He
You better
was
tell
on,
who he is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everyone knew who
Well, I
Ollie
do,
Fretter
but
was.
we're dating ourselves, right?
Ollie Fretter
Fretter.
of Fretter's Appliance. They were one of the first big box appliance stores in the Midwest.
If I can't beat your deal, I'll give you 5 pounds of coffee.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
I don't know if we have any more shots here. I think Ollie was seeing Tom again.
Oh, Judith Guest, the author of Ordinary People, which became a movie. Anybody that remembers Pachelbel Chorus remembers that was the theme from the movie Ordinary People, which captured all the Oscars that year, just about.
She was right here in Royal Oak as well.
Yep.
Right here in Royal Oak.
There's a good landmark there. We blew past that pretty quickly, but that was the...
Oh, wait. Washington, this is where Stagecrafters is right over there in the old Baldwin Theater, which became the Washington Theater. And then they've moved the entrance over to the side, and it's Stagecrafters again that has live theater.
And it's just down where Kresge's was in Montgomery Wards.
Revco Drugs. Remember that?
Now here's one that'll bring back a lot of memories for anybody who that was
Susie Q.
That was before the times of McDonald's, and it was a treat to go out to eat. Nobody went out to eat, but I remember Susie Q. So.
And my parents would often take us there on Friday nights because they had a great fish fry. And if you were Catholic, you had fish on Friday.
I don't want to date my wife out there, but she talks about the Susie Q fish a lot.
Okay.
So she's
Oh,
from
it was
this area.
tremendous.
It was a great place.
And what else do we have here? I think.
Oh, you had one of the roadhouses. Oh, and there you had the Strip.
That was before the Dream Cruise, obviously, but look, that was the real
original
Dream Cruise.
Dream Cruise.
Yeah.
Original Dream Cruise.
The original Dream Cruise.
Cruisers.
What you can see if you look is you can see your Belinda
Bowling alley.
bowling
yeah.
alley. And President Nixon came from a little town called Yorba Linda, California. And it was named for him. And then there's the big town. You know, I used to cruise Woodward. God, I'm dating myself. But I had my Camaro, my little 68 Camaro with the racing stripe around it. And you'd go up and down that strip all night long on $1 worth of gas.
That's a priceless picture there. Do we have another one?
This
here?
one was a cover for another Arcadia book, which is Cruising the Old Woodward Avenue. So just to mention, and the authors were very helpful for us, helping us get pictures.
Well, great. I think those are all the pictures we have. That was just a glimpse of what your book has to offer. So I hope that everyone can go out and buy the book, give it as a gift, maybe buy 4 or 5 copies.
That's right.
You didn't put the picture of Dr. Kevorkian up.
Well, I was going to have you, real quick, I was going to have you tell some of the good. We had Father Coughlin, obviously, who made an impact on the world, and we also had Dr. Jack Kevorkian, who also made an impact on the world, maybe in a different way. Tell us about him real quick. We have just a few more minutes.
Well,
You know best.
he was living downtown on Main Street in an apartment building where part of Mr. B's is now, and I was working at the Mirror newspaper at the time, and we were on the building adjacent to him, and my office and his apartment had an adjoining wall, and I could hear him in there
Doing whatever he was
dishes
doing.
or clanging around, or you know how you hear people. And one night I was working on the paper and proofing pages till about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Went home. The printer was coming the next day, so I came back about 7 in the morning. The whole building was surrounded by national media, international media, local media. They had the trucks with the big satellites, and people are buzzing. I'm going, what's going on? They said, Dr. Kevorkian had an assisted suicide last night in his apartment. I'm thinking, my God, I'm 2 feet away, story of the century, big journalist, and I'm in.
And you're at home. Yeah. Isn't that the funny? That's the way things work out sometimes. Well, all right, let me, we just have a few more seconds here. If someone wants to get a hold of your book, how can they do that?
Facebook.
Facebook's the best way?
Look up Royal Oak History Book, and they can find us and the information for getting it.
Okay.
It's also available at the Royal Oak Museum, Barnes & Noble, and some other stores.
Costco.
around.
Costco, too, that's
yeah.
right. So there's no excuse for not going out and buying this book.
Great.
All right, well, thank you both for being on the Royal Oak Show, and
Thanks,
I hope
Carlo.
you had as much fun as we did having you on the show.
Thanks
That's
very
good.
much.
We
Thank
could
you.
offer that if somebody doesn't buy, we'll send Dr. Kevorkian their way.
Hey, you said it, not me. But whatever
only
works.
joking. We hope it's lots of fun for people.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you very much for coming. And
Thank you for
wish you all
inviting.
the success in the world for this book. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with another well-renowned author and all-around good guy, Dan Calabrese. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to the Royal Oak Show. Our next guest obviously needs no introduction. He's been on the show before. Dan's a son of Royal Oak, one of our favorite sons of Royal Oak. He was here last year, I think, to talk about a book, Powers and Principalities. He's been very, very busy since his last appearance on the Royal Oak Show. In fact, Andy and I would like to think that it's because of his appearance on the Royal Oak Show that he has been so busy. He has a new book out. We're going to talk about that in just a little while. It's a sequel to Powers and Principality. He's here tonight to tell us about the demons that are walking the streets of Royal Oak and what his characters from the book are doing to protect us all from these evil spirits. Without any further ado, we welcome Dan Calabrese. Dan, thank you very much.
I'm glad you have me back, but I have to. Andy, what's going on here?
Somebody got the memo, is what it appears to be.
Didn't get the memo. It's just it's a
Somebody
good thing.
didn't get the memo.
It's a good thing we're not women because this could get ugly. But
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder, Andy, you got the facial hair trying to be like me, you're dressed like Dan.
and there's a little bit of the spiky hair, although his is much more severe.
Yeah, mine doesn't spike at all anymore.
We're okay,
so.
but
Severe is one way to put it,
yeah.
I guess.
But
Yeah, when you walked in the studio tonight, I went, oh, this is going to be great.
what about you?
This is what I sleep in. I don't wear anything but a tie, and this is me.
We'll
Even
let
on
it
Saturday
slide
afternoon.
this time.
Of course, I don't have anything underneath the desk, so. You can see that, but these guys can't. So it's a kid show. It's a kid show.
How long am I going to be up here?
As long as we want you to be, Dan, I'll tell you. All right, let's get right into it. You've been a very, very busy man since the last time you've been on the Royal Oak Show.
I got to find things to do. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to remember if I think that when I did the last segment was in March, and we filmed it in March and it ran throughout April, and at that time Pharmakia was, I don't know, maybe a third of the way done.
You were teasing us at the time. You were here on with Powers and Principality, your first novel.
And now if you're doing the close up there, some may recognize that is just past the 11-mile viaduct, and you can see the Washington Square building there, and the train coming, which my son and I waited an hour and a half to take a picture of.
I remember when you talked about you said that,
right.
and then you did some photoshopping to make it look
make it look like night. It's actually 3 in the afternoon.
Now, when you came through and you talked about Powers and Principalities, which is a great book, you've written another book, a sequel.
Yep.
And I got to hold that up as well. Your new book is Pharmakia. Did I pronounce that?
You did.
Okay.
And pharmakia is a Greek word. It has 2 meanings, both of which are relevant to the book. It is a root word for our modern word pharmacy, and it's also a word used in the Bible to refer to sorcery. And the 2 meanings are intertwined in our story. And what we see is, I kind of feel like I missed the boat. I should have had a character who hides in a tree with his manservant, but John and Maureen got that one already.
That's not in here.
He would sue me if I did.
Maybe that'll be the third book about. I saw you out there when John and Maureen were talking. You were going, oh, manservant, tree.
Why didn't I think of that? Where we go in this one is that we have the same 3 main characters as in Powers and Principalities, but the supporting cast is almost entirely
That's Clay Bender and
yes, and Murphy and Kyla.
Okay.
And this time there's a lot of younger characters in the story, and they are inclined to give themselves over to certain indulgences of the world, and some pretty bizarre, troubling things start happening to them as a result of this. And as the story goes on, we explore the spiritual background of some of these events. And it also leads to, and one of the things that I've done is I've created a very large fictional megachurch, which doesn't exist. So don't go looking for it. But in the story, it's at 13 Mile and Campbell.
Okay.
And we call it Royal Oak Cathedral. And it's based on some of the prosperity gospel type churches that you've heard about, the Joel Osteen and Robert Schuller type churches, and it's based on that, and there are some creepy events that happened there too. But I did make that one up. There's a lot of real real Royal Oak landmarks in the story that you'll recognize.
I'm going to ask you real quick, on the cover, just like Powers and Principality, there's an interest, and again, I don't know if they're going to be able to get a close-up of this, I hope so, the modern technology. There is a streetscape, if you will.
That's
Who is
Washington
that?
Avenue.
Okay.
And you're looking at Washington Avenue from the north. So you see the 5th, and then a little ways down, I think you can see Urbane Apartments there. And that young lady's name is Amanda Kuhn. And this was one of those, because we always do our own cover art, because I don't think anybody can do it the way I like it.
Sure.
So
it's cheaper that way,
my
too,
son
isn't
and
it?
I were wandering around downtown Royal Oak one day in August, trying to kind of come up with a concept for something we could do. And we came across this young lady who's from Warren, who was getting her senior pictures taken on the tracks in downtown Royal Oak, which is a cool idea.
You didn't know her before?
No,
oh,
but
okay.
we
That's
were looking
interesting.
for it, and she had her mother and her sister with her. So we wandered up to them on the tracks, and because my son was with me, I probably appeared a little less creepy than I actually am. And I asked her if she would do this, because I was sort of looking for a model who could kind of represent these young, no one character really, but who could sort of represent these young characters who were getting themselves into trouble and sort of about to fall backwards into the abyss, if you will. And so she did a great job, and we had a launch party at 5:15 a couple weeks ago, and she came and wore the same outfit. So that was fun.
Yeah, let's talk about your launch party. I was unable to make it that night. Ironically, I was at a library board meeting right down the street. I was right there.
He was with them.
I was right, standing there staring at the statue.
Yeah.
But you had quite a lot of dignitaries there from Royal Oak. You had Mayor Ellison was there. You had a few other people. It was a successful
and
book
also
signing.
and Karen Button, who's another local author who's done some really good work as well, came out, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great crowd, and we had some people who came in that would just, I think, had heard about the book and wanted to ask questions about it and get a copy. So we had a great crowd and a great time, and I really want to say thanks especially to Gary and the group at 5:15, because awesome setting. I mean, really edgy setting for a really edgy book, and we had a great time there.
Yeah, I was unfortunate I couldn't make it, but I heard it was a good time. It was a good time had by all. Now I got to ask you. I mean, before you got here today, you're a very busy man. You did an interview with. Can I mention the
sure.
name? The 1500 AM with Paul
WLQV,
Edwards.
LQV.
Right. And I listened to the interview, and I a lot of the interview or a lot of the questions that Paul was asking you, I was going to ask you. Like, in other words, what's up with your settings in Royal Oak here? Is there something about Royal Oak that we should know about with all the demons and everything else?
It's funny because my original reason for choosing Royal Oak at the setting is about as uninspiring a reason as you can come up with, which is I didn't want to make up a fictional place, but I didn't want to do any research because I'm too lazy for that. So pick a place you know. But it wasn't long into Powers and Principalities before I realized that I had just stumbled backwards into an awesome choice, because I mean, and some of it's just all the things that John and Maureen talked about in their book, all the history, the neighborhoods, the families, the schools, the institutions, the railway running through, and the atmosphere that creates. It was just perfect for a setting that has this spiritual undertone and this environment to it. Couldn't have picked a better place. And so I think that anytime you're going to explore things like that, you want to have a lot of character, and you want to be able to tell a story that people can look at and they say, I understand why people feel so deeply about this community because I'm from there and I feel that way.
When people read Pharmakia or Powers and Principalities, they're going to see a lot of familiar references in these books. So if for no other reason, buy the books and try to pick out the places that you
I was just there this morning. Yeah.
Now, both of these books obviously have to do with demonic possession and the underworld, not the underworld like...
Not like the
not
mafia,
the mob,
like
yeah.
our families.
Right.
Yeah.
A different kind of underworld, if you know what I'm saying. Andy's lost over there.
I'm English, no Italian over here.
They didn't have a secret society in England?
Just stick with us.
Yeah,
And
cool.
do as you're told.
I love Pasquale's, though. I'll tell you that.
If anybody asks you any questions, we'll take care of it. Now, there's also a religious undertone to both of these books.
Oh, yeah.
And other than an author, you're a teacher, and you have you're a contributor for in the Detroit News, the blog,
The Michigan View.
The Michigan View.
Yeah.
Right. It's a conservative view, but you also are a religion educator, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, so when you were talking about powers and principalities last time, you had mentioned that there may be some sort of negative reaction, if you will, from the mainstream religious world. Have you had any kind of that backlash, if you
about
will?
what I expected, and it hasn't been. I mean, nobody's called me and told me I'm going to hell or anything like that. But the issue that I expected would be controversial is that in mainstream Christian publishing, you really have to sanitize the story. Certain words are verboten, certain kinds of descriptions are not allowed, because they want to be able to put something in a nice, happy, family-friendly bookstore where nobody would ever come in and get offended by anything. And that's fine, but that's not really the kind of story that I wanted to tell. I wanted to tell more of a down and dirty type story of spiritual mayhem that is more like the stuff that people deal with in real life. And that can get kind of ugly sometimes, but it can lead you to redemptive type resolutions. So, I mean, what I've encountered is all the same kinds of people that I thought would say, I don't want any part of that, are the ones who did that. And that's okay. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur by nature, and I don't like dealing with corporations or anything. So I figured out pretty quickly that it was fine with me that the Christian publishers didn't want to touch it, because I don't really want to deal with them anyways. And I mean, and just from a business perspective, you publish something with a traditional publisher, and you sit there every quarter waiting for your 10 to 20% royalty check, and sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't, depends on your publisher. Because I have my own company, North Star Writers Group, that can do this, we publish it and market ourselves, and every time we sell a book, 100% of the money goes right into my bank account.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that helps keep the demons away for a little while.
So that was a problem that we were able to turn into a solution pretty easily.
Now, we're getting toward the holiday season, if you will, and hopefully people will, just like John and Maureen's book, go out and buy these books by the dozens. Where can you get?
Oh,
I bet you knew I was going to ask that.
I'm glad you asked me that, because we're actually going to pair them into a Christmas package. So because happy stories of spiritual mayhem are perfect for Christmas.
Oh, exactly.
So
yeah.
if you've already read them and you really like them, but you want to give them as a gift for somebody else, we're going to be offering them at a special price, and it'll be on our website by the time this airs.
Okay, and your website
it's dancalabresebooks.com, and I'm sure you've got the thing running in front of me right now.
Right.
And then there's also some local downtown retailers where you can get them. You can get them at 515. You can get them at the Ladybug Shop.
Okay.
Smoky Cigars.
There you go.
Goldfish Tea, and Eye Candy. All have it. So you can go in there and get them, or you can just order them online from dancalabresebooks.com, and we ship them the next day. And if you do order them online, I guess I maybe sort of sign them all for you personally. So.
There you go. Do I get a signed copy of it?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's good. So, Dan, again, you probably weren't ready for the fame that met you after the Royal Oak show, but I'm so happy that it looks like
it's getting to the point where I can walk into a coffee shop and I don't get accosted.
Well, you will after you find out you're dressed like Andy, though.
What happens is I tell them I know him, and then they back.
Then they leave you alone?
So,
real quick, you got your family here. I just want to mention real quick your lovely wife, Angie, and your son,
Tony.
Tony was on the interview tonight.
Who was jonesing for a spot up here.
Oh, really?
I'm going to tell you, yeah.
Maybe we got enough time. We can bring him up here real quick. I don't know. Come on up here and say hi, Tony.
You got to write a book now.
This is a wonder of cable TV too. This is impromptu. Richard's back there pulling his hair out, saying, "What the heck did Carlo do?"
He gets on Paul Edwards.
Right now he's on the Royal Oak show.
And now he's on the Royal Oak show. So
you go to school tomorrow. You could tell all the other kids they'll be jealous. Everybody else is going to the Super Bowl and everything else. You're going to the Royal Oak show. Well, I wanted to thank you once again for coming on. It's always a pleasure, and I hope the next time you come on, you'll have a third book, and you'll wow us with.
I might have some plans for them.
Oh, a teaser. A teaser.
I might.
Okay. Nothing like Transformers or anything like that.
We'll see. We'll see. Not giving anything away.
Well, thank you very much,
Thanks,
Dan.
Carlo.
And thank you very much for coming on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with the very funny man, Russ Brown, in 30 seconds. Thanks again for coming.
When a disaster strikes, time is a killer. The UN Central Emergency Response Fund jumpstarts relief efforts, which saves lives. Help us help in time. Donate now at rapiddisasterrelief.org.
Where can the skills you learn with ham radio take you? Amateur radio, often called ham radio, is the place where today's communications engineers got their hands-on training. With its analog, digital, audio, and video capabilities, modern hams use computers and radios in new ways. It's not just your grandfather's radio anymore. It can take you around the world or into a whole new career. Learn more about modern ham radio at WeDoThatRadio.org.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Royal Oak Show. Our next guest, this is an evening of repeat performers. Our next guest has been here before. He's going to come on. He's going to make you laugh. He may make you cry, but in any event, he's our very own Russ Brown.
Hey, love it. Love being here on the Royal Oak Show. It's one of my son's favorite programs because he's 9 and he finds it easy to follow. That's why I like it. But I'm a parent and I do have children. I like to talk about real things. And here's the thing about having children, especially for guys. Like I have to go by a guy's sort of standards, but I have a son, and I had the son first, and I think you need to get those out of the way because they're the easiest child. For a guy, it's easy. You know what to do. You take him out in the yard, you play football, you throw rocks at his head. Guy stuff. It's real easy. We know what to do. But little boys are real rational. They're logical. You can reason with them. If a 5-year-old is in a public place and he's acting crazy, you can lean into his ear just quietly as a dad, like, go, if you do that again, I'm going to push you down those stairs and tell people you tripped. And a little boy will straighten right up like, oh. And you can do that with a little boy. They're honest. You can deal with them. But I'm at the point now where you're disciplining him now. He's older. He's 9. You don't know what to, they have their own opinions. They're so aggressive about things, and they want to do their own things. And you can't just beat them, because that's your first instinct. It is, but you can't just do that. And I grew up in a time in the 70s when my father could have beat me, but he never did. He never had to. We would be driving in the car, and we didn't have car seats. We had a big Ford van with a bed in the back and a sink and everything. And we'd be driving along, and you'd get about 2 warning shots out of him. He'd give you the, hey, and then he'd just drill the brakes. You'd go flying into the back of that captain's chair, then he'd swerve into the back, he'd hit the gas into the sink, and you'd fall down asleep until you got to West Branch. It was a great time, but I can't do that now, so I had to come. And I hear all these experts all the time, and they say you should never hit your child. What you should do is you should do something positive with them so they won't want to disappoint you. And I thought about it, and it works great. This is what we do. Now, anytime my son does something that would normally warrant a beating, I take him out in the yard, and we play catch, and it goes great. I'm like, all right, boy, you know what you did. And I let him walk outside. He gets about 5 steps in front of me. I'm like, boom, there you go. And he's like, ah! I didn't even turn around that time. Ah! How come every time I spill chocolate milk on the couch, we play catch? Oh, I hate catch. Oh, this is terrible. Think about it. What's he going to do? Call protective services? They're not going to arrest me. They're going to tell me to work on his fundamentals. I beat the system. No, I do have the boy. He was real easy to deal with. And then I had a daughter. Oh, how many guys have daughters? Just in the immediate, oh, that is a tough club to be in. Because ladies, I don't know if you understand this, men don't know anything about women. Nothing, at any age, for any reason. It's a complete blank page. And when you have a daughter, I think men who have daughters, we understand women better than most men. We really do. Men who don't have daughters, it's because we've watched them grow from the ground up. We've seen everything. We've put in everything, and then we see what comes out. And this is what men with daughters have learned. And we've learned that women are born evil, right? Yeah, it's not nurture, it's nature. That's sugar and spice and everything nice. That's marketing. Yeah, that's what that is. That's man, that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. A poet didn't write that. That was on the bottom of a guy's suicide note. That's a true story. I have too. I know. And it's so funny because the little girls are like terrorists. It's all raw emotion and vengeance and hatred, and there's no, they're so, like if you tried that little trick, where you lean into the ear like you do with a little boy because that works so good, you go, this is not my first kid, I know what I'm doing. And you lean into her and you go, listen, if you do that again, you don't even get to the threat. They just fall down on the ground and start screaming, ah, he throws baseballs at my brother. He does me, ah. It's like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. You can't reason with them. And if you don't believe That story. I will give you a true story. My daughter, she was 2 years old, and she is the absolute apple of my eye. When they're potty training, they're 2 years old, they're potty training. She's in her big girl pants, which any parent who's ever had to potty train a child knows that you are making deals with God, trying to just be like, I don't care if she ever graduates high school. Just please, please, just let her learn, please. I can't. And she was at that point, and she comes up to me, and she's so adorable, and she goes, Daddy, I want a cookie. And I looked at her, I said, oh, you can't have a cookie right now, you'll spoil your dinner. And she looked up at me, and then she just turned, and it was, I want a cookie right now. Now, I was in the Marines, I don't take that. I just looked at her serious and went, listen, no means no. And if you throw a fit, there won't be a cookie after dinner. And she just looked at me, angry and hateful. And then she went, and she said, you got to change me. Does anyone think I just made that up? Like, where's that chapter in the book? Dr. Phil, you prick? Like, I read your book. It was a great night. Daddy drank the whole box of wine that night. That was fantastic. You guys have been a great audience. Thank you very, very much. My name is Russ Brown.
Hey, Russ, thanks for coming on.
Good job.
The whole time you were telling that story, my daughter was up on the top row giving me dirty looks. Because I have hell to pay when I get home now.
Those are true stories. You can't write that.
So what have you been doing since the last time you were here on the Royal Show?
Last time I was here, I've done a lot of cool things. I've been to Iraq. I spent a year in Iraq training the Iraqi army and doing shows for the troops. And
training the Iraqi army. That would be the
new
guys
Iraqi,
on our side?
Yeah, not the... I think some of them were weekend warriors. That's what we used to call them. They'd get mad and then something weird would happen, and we were like...
You were in the Marine Corps, you mentioned
I was, absolutely.
And you went back to Iraq to train?
As a civilian contractor. I'd always wanted to go...
Military training, or...?
Yeah, we taught them vehicle maintenance and organizational stuff. And
you can't talk to us about it. You'd have to
No,
tell
it's
us.
not secret. No, it's how to fix a Humvee in a truck. It's not that secret.
Work with me here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you wanted me to be a spy, I could.
Okay, well,
it's not.
I guess you tell Oprah, you'd be a spy.
Whatever.
Did you have any funny stories from over? I mean, not that there's anything funny about Iraq,
absolutely.
but I mean, obviously.
I have a weird life. Weird things happen to me. I'm a comic, I think, by default. But this is an absolute true story. I was in Iraq, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and we got rocketed. And it was, first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And we were sitting there, and I had 2 Iraqis with me. Both of them were former Iraqi army, so they're pretty hardcore. And this first rocket we didn't see, and it just blows up behind us. And it was this loud clang, and it sounded like somebody dropped a dumpster on the other side of the building. And so we were like, what the? And I looked out, and I had these huge windows, and I could see this rocket coming in straight at me. And I was just like, and the 2 Iraqis looked up and saw it, and it's coming in, and it's coming straight at me. And the 2 Iraqis fell down on the ground and are laying there on the floor, and this rocket comes in, and it lands about 40 yards short, and it was a small rocket, and it blew up, and it shook the windows, but nothing happened. It wasn't anything, too dramatic. But for whatever reason, I just watched it come in, and I didn't move, I didn't flinch, I didn't anything, and it goes boom! And this is a true story. The Iraqi looks up at me, and he's looking up, and he says, you didn't even flinch. And I am a comic, so I always try to make jokes about stuff. That's how I diffuse situations. So I looked down at him, and I went, I'm from Detroit. And that's a true story. And this is what he said to me. He looks up at me and he goes, ooh, I heard it's not very nice there. That's what he said, because they all have cousins in Dearborn. I'm not making it up. And it was,
now, this is in Iraq. He's saying
this is in Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a guy in Baghdad where they don't have electricity or water, and he's like, you guys have Granholm and the Lions. I'm going to ride this out. But, yeah, I think we're good here.
That's funny. I mean, that is really funny. Did you have any other kind of stories?
Well, they have a different thing that they do over there. They're different compass on what's appropriate and not. And they all smoke over there. And this one guy was smoking, and then we had this one big giant guy and a little smaller guy would always pick on him, but then he would outrun him. Well, one day I'm in my office and I'm doing something, and I hear all this commotion, and I go out there, man, if they're gonna make me go out there and straighten. So I go up and I open the door like, what's going on out here? And the big giant guy had this barrel, and it's a hazardous waste barrel kind of. It's a big plastic thing you're supposed to put oily rags in, and he's dragging it outside. And I thought, and I said, where's Riyadh? And Riyadh's the little guy. And Mohi just kind of looks at me like this, and I looked at him, and he didn't really speak English, so I got the interpreter over there, and so we asked him, and he just went like this. And so I kind of tapped on the barrel, and it taps back. And I thought, And so I had to have this conversation. I said, Mohi, we don't put people in barrels. And he'd been so mad at him, he just couldn't take it. And he stuffed him in the barrel and screwed the lid on. And it's airtight. And so I had to explain to him that people need air, and you can't do that. And so we unscrewed the barrel to get it out. And he's sitting in there Indian style, and he flips me the bird, and he's smoking a cigarette. This huge puff of smoke comes out. He's locked in a barrel, smoking a cigarette, and he flips me the bird. And I was just so... And I went, put the lid back on. And so we put the lid back on. And I said, go do what you're going to do. So he drags the barrel over to another building. And this guy comes out, and he sees this barrel sitting out. And he's like, what's the dragging this barrel? So the other guy doesn't know that there's a guy in there smoking, chain smoking. So he opens it up, and this big puff of smoke like a genie. And Riyadh flies out of there and grabs the barrel and just takes off running. And the guy in the other building is like, and it was an American. We were giggling.
A lot of stories are different over there.
And like the stuff that you would find dangerous or terrifying don't affect them whatsoever. They kicked a soccer ball on top of our building, which is about 30 feet. And I came outside, and the soccer ball costs $5 over there. But they love soccer, and they'd kicked the only one that they had on the roof. So they took the forklift, put a ladder on it, like a regular step ladder, climbed up on they had the forks all the way up, then they climbed all the way up and were standing on their tiptoes on the top of this ladder on the forks, and then they would jump up and grab the edge of the building and pull their way up and get to kick a ball off a roof. And we were like, you can't do that.
Soccer ball is a soccer ball. You get $5.
It was crazy. And then when you would say you're gonna die, you can't do that, they would look at you like you were crazy. Like, oh, it's okay. It's
a soccer ball.
Yeah, everything over there is inshallah, which is mean if it's God's will that I fall off this ladder and die, who am I to criticize? I was like, don't.
Okay, not on my watch anyway.
Yeah, it was just, but it was a really cool time, and they have a really rich history and culture, and the people over there are actually, really good people, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a great time, great experience.
And now you're here on the Royal Oak Show, and
yeah, and now it gets even better.
I tell you, it doesn't get any better than this. We just got a couple minutes to get together. Where can people see you? Where are you going to be?
Well, I perform all over the country. I mean, I work out of state.
Do you have a website that they can get
I do. I have RussBrownComedy.com.
RussBrown.com.
And then I have another website that I
What's the name of that website?
It's called The Big Tongue Guy. It's a stupid thing.
TheBigTongueGuy.com?
TheBigTongueGuy.com.
Okay, well, that'll be for another show.
Yeah, it's a stupid thing. I'd love for people to just think I'm a good comic and stuff like that, but the only thing that they remember is occasionally on my show I broke the record for the world's longest tongue, and it's a stupid thing to be known for, but people never forget it, and so I can be as funny as I want, but they won't remember the jokes.
Bigger than Gene Simmons.
It's literally, it's 9.7, it's centimeters. It's stupid.
Okay, well, don't show us because we have to sleep tonight.
Yeah,
so.
if you have to, I would hate to, you've had such classy guests, and there's going to be like, it's the dopey guy.
Yeah, you're going to mess it up here a little bit.
I know it. I don't want to. But yeah, you
RussBrownComedy.com
or the Big Tongue Guy. Either one of them take you to the same place. I had to accept it's all horrible marketing.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We really love having you back, and I really do appreciate it, Russ. Good to see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for another night of the Royal Oak Show. On behalf of Andy, Richard Wilson, the folks here at CMN, all the volunteers that make this show possible, we'd like to thank our studio audience. Give yourself a big hand. And especially a very, very warm welcome to our guests, Keith Famie, John Schultz and Mauren McDonald, Dan Calabrese, and the very, very funny BigTongueGuy.com, Russ Brown. That's it for tonight. Andy, thanks again. We got to go. Thank you. I thought you were going to tell a story. Next time you come on, tell a story about